Hello, my name is Jovan Burton, and my action research project is on successful band programs in the urban, suburban, and rural setting. I decided to do this project as the beginning piece or cornerstone of my dissertation. I am a EDD student in the School of Music, trying to obtain my degree, doctorate in education, with a concentration in music education. Um, I've chosen this project because I've been a band director for 9 years, and success is a big thing when it comes to my profession. And in any situation with any school, the success of the school is very important. So what I decided to do, instead of looking at a really broad project, because in my dissertation, what I've hoped to kind of accomplish is looking at the pros, the cons of teaching in those environments, and kind of hope that my dissertation would create this kind of how-to guide for a senior and undergraduate school, or for teacher preparation purposes, or for that first year teacher, band director that's just come out of undergrad. I don't believe that is a one size fits all situation. Um, and it's kind of the elephant in the room when you look at certain schools that are more successful than others. And to funnel it down to band, I've taken the time in this project to really discover, well, what makes a band program successful in a given situation, an urban, suburban, or rural setting. And on the flip side of that, I think I can begin to kind of discover, as a whole in the school, is a school functioning at a high level. And I think that, even though I'm talking about band, I'm making it very specific to my content area, because I'm very passionate about this. I think it can begin to open the conversation at the end of the day for what is going on in different educational settings across the country, and what are our students doing, and should we adapt the model to fit the needs of those students. So this project is going to begin to help me dive into that specific type of idea or thought process. So why talk about success of a band program in these settings? It is a continuous effort in the world of music education to address the specific learning settings in the U.S. So, what I do for professional development, I attend my state conference here in Georgia, Georgia Music Educators Association, and I attend the international conference every year in Chicago, the Midwest International Band and Orchestra Clinic. And what you'll find a lot of times in those situations is this discussion of, hey, here's a new teaching practice. Let's go and try that. And what's new in our setting is the idea of the Title One lecture series, where people are starting to kind of speak up about, well, hey, well, maybe in this Title One situation or this different situation that doesn't have all the financial support or means of some other schools, you might want to strategize your teaching around this. So my project falls along those lines of, hey, maybe everything doesn't work the same. So, most importantly, I have on here the teaching strategies and instrumental education, and how one size does not fit all. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, I'm trying to use this project to discover, um, well, is a one fit all process doable, or should we really look at the end of the day, um, differentiation of instruction for schools as a whole, and should we expect the same type of learning outcomes? It's been my personal effort to look for the common strategies that successful band programs use with their students and parents. So again, one of the big things, as being a band director, is that we praise ourselves on how successful our program is, how well the students play, how many students we have in the band program, how excited about our kids are about our band program, and that looks different a lot of places. So looking for commonalities about recruitment, about pedagogy, method books, resources, instruments. It could boil down to something like that. And if you don't have the money to kind of finance those things, what are some other programs doing in different situations to be successful? So what I've done is spoke to different band directors to figure out what resources they are using, to kind of try to find some common ground about okay, this strategy might really work, or just a director's philosophy at the end of the day about what is successful and how they obtain that success at the end of the day. So a description of the project is: through my 9 years of teaching, I have observed that teaching band is very different in many parts of the country and also in the state of Georgia. There are many assumptions as to why a band program may seem to be very successful in comparison to others. But one of the first things we must define is what is success, and that's the biggest piece in my I'm hoping to kind of uncover in the dissertation. But through this project, this is kind of the beginning talking point of when I was speaking with the three directors is what do they define as success, and what do they define at the end of the day of what's necessary to be successful. And I find some commonalities in what they discuss, and I also find some differences. Some of that's based on personal preference, but I've tried my best through the collection of data to really begin to discover at the end of the day of okay, this is something common that most people would agree on at the end of the day as far as being successful. A few things that we did pick out was constant growth. As your program have a good size and numbers. Usually a band program in any public school usually is going to be between the population of 10 to 14% of your population. If you're kind of sitting around those numbers, that's about average. If you're able to kind of shoot above that, some would deem that to be very successful, especially if your kids play very well. Do your students perform on a high level? So, visited programs, one would assume in the suburban setting, a little bit more affluent, that those programs will be successful and able to play harder literature. The students are able to perform on more an advanced level, and partially some of that is true, but some of the same qualities as far as teaching and pedagogy and what the director is focusing on at the end of the day, I try to extract that to compare to what's going on in the rural setting, because I found a very successful rural program that shares some of the same ideas and also in a suburban setting. And last thing, here or there, as far as is your program receiving local or national awards? Kind of like as a catalyst to, hey, here's what we do and here's what we have to show for it. Data collection. So over the course of 4 weeks, I conducted phone conferences with a few directors, retired and current teachers, FaceTime meetings, whatever I can do at the end of the day to obtain information. I would keep a notebook with me, write down some of the answers, responses that we had, some of the questions. And here at the bottom are the three main research questions that I focused on. Um, so definitely getting an idea at the end of the day as far as what directors seem to be successful. Interestingly, that all the directors didn't necessarily agree on what was successful at the end of the day, but one common thing is that the students are growing and learning. At the end of the day, that was something very common that I found. I've had a chance to go and observe three different band programs in three different settings. Kind of watch the structure of the program and the rehearsal, what they were preparing for. I had a chance to speak to a couple of students about how they go about their participation in the program, and to try to find some commonalities in between the three different settings, as to see as to whether or not the students were doing the same thing, had access to the same things, or were capable of doing the same things. And I think that's a great determining factor that I'm hoping to pull through this project, or am pulling through this project, as to discover that these are common things that you should do to be successful in your program. Some of my findings after pulling through the research, I put it into different categories. Commonalities. All the three directors agree that pedagogy was very important. How we teach, how we explain things to our students, fundamentals, making sure that students grasp a great mastery concept of what they're learning at the early stages, or on the appropriate level that they should be reading on. The type of resource that you're using, are using effective method books, websites, videos, things that enhance the children's ability to learn. Planning. Planning was a big thing that each of the directors in the three settings talked about is planning for the whole year, planning for your classroom. How do you program your music? Things you're going to do with your kids this year so you know which direction you're going into, and your students know which direction you're going to go into. And without that plan, all of them pretty much agreed that you pretty much wouldn't get too far with your students. And setting goals for students was something very common that each director discussed. Differently than others. Some discussed about how to use their pass off system to set goals. And the pass off system is that basically students would know they had to play a certain amount of things, and they would play it, and they knew they had to pass them, so they saw their goals for the whole year and what they had to work towards. But overall, goal setting in that situation. The differences I found is levels of music. What I found in a certain conversation and interviews that directors didn't. Some directors agreed that you should push your students. Some directors agreed that you should play music appropriate to the level or a little bit further back to not overextend the students. So that was something that was common. What method book to use? Some prefer the standard of excellence. Some prefer accent on achievement, superior performance. So just small differences as far as this is the best method book to use versus the other one, and levels of support. One director totally felt like your students having private lessons was a big factor in your students being successful. And another director agreed and disagreed, and one director completely just stated that at the end of the day that it's their responsibility as a teacher to make sure their students receive great level of instruction and shouldn't have to rely on private lessons. In my reflections, I found the research experience to be very enlightening. It was definitely a pleasure traveling to the different schools, interacting with the directors. Um, Collecting the data definitely helped me gain a better understanding of how other directors structure their programs, but definitely was a boost of excitement as far as really being able to really dive into the creation of this project. But most importantly, the bigger goal is being able to really have some good fundamental points with this project to apply to my dissertation. It was difficult for me to funnel down some of the information. I really wanted to really comment on some of the things that didn't work, but I truly stuck to the idea. I want to focus on what is successful, and at the end of the day, and what is success. And lastly, focus on the success of band programs in these three educational settings will help me strengthen my dissertation. So um, through this project, I am gaining and have gained a better understanding about how these settings might work. So it's definitely going to help me with being able to funnel down the information as far as what is successful in my definition. I'm trying to come up with a generic definition in the final presentation of this project, in hopes that it can encourage others to want to dive into the same topic.